address you with a view of handing over to the incoming chair of the Union. Excellencies, we are meeting, as I said, at an unprecedented moment in the history of the African Union. Countries and societies around the world have been shaken to their foundations by this deadly and devastating pandemic. This pandemic has been a stark reminder of both our vulnerability as well as our interconnectedness as the human race. It has also demonstrated the value of our Pan-African ideals of unity, solidarity, and cooperation to fulfill our common destiny. Fortified by our unity, we have stepped up to the challenge. Africa has come into her own, led by this, our African Union. Today marks the end of South Africa's tenure as the chair of the African Union. When we assumed the chairship of the African Union in February 2020, the world was a completely different place. As a continent, we identified several priorities for the year. We agreed to focus on the promotion of peace and security as part of the effort to silence the guns in Africa. Also support economic development and integration through the operationalization of the African Continental Free Trade Area. Also to advance the economic empowerment of women, and finally to support good governance and democracy. Yet within a matter of weeks, the coronavirus pandemic forced us to urgently reprioritize both our programs of action and the deployment of our resources. Our most immediate and pressing concern was to manage the impact of the pandemic on the people of our continent. We worked with urgency to develop the Africa Joint Continental Strategy for COVID-19 and have effectively implemented it through the various structures of the AU. We have been ably led by the AU Bureau, which has been at the forefront of coordinating the responses by our member states. As part of our continental response, the Bureau appointed 6 prominent and distinguished Africans as special envoys to mobilize financial resources to support our national health responses and assist in the recovery of our economies. These special envoys are Dr. Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala of Nigeria, and Professor Akwenda from the Democratic Republic of Congo. These outstanding envoys have held extensive engagements with a number of important institutions in the world, countries to mitigate the economic impact of the pandemic through debt relief, cancellation of debt, deferment of debt payments, as well as the provision of new funding. Thanks to these and other efforts, the IMF and the World Bank have deployed significant financial resources for COVID-19 response on our continent. Yet our work is not yet done. Access to concessional finance will remain crucial as countries rebuild their economies. An injection of fresh resources by the IMF through reallocating and issuing new special drawing rights with a bias towards the developing world will correct the glaring inequality in fiscal stimulus measures between advanced economies and the rest of the world. As the African continent, we established a COVID-19 response fund to raise resources for the continental response. Significantly, it was our own member states that made the first contributions towards the capitalization of the fund. In responding to the pandemic, we've been at the forefront of innovation. We established a groundbreaking African medical supplies platform to assist AU member states to access affordable medical supplies. This effort was led by another special envoy, Mr. Strive Masiyiwa of Zimbabwe, who took on the weighty responsibility to coordinate the private sector effort to procure critical personal protective equipment and other essential supplies to combat COVID-19. In establishing this platform, we have given practical meaning to the mantra we often repeat, that we are committed to developing African solutions to African problems. We have harnessed the excellence that exists on our own continent before searching for expertise beyond our shores. Our response to COVID-19 has been driven, coordinated and capacitated by our own scientists and medical experts, mainly located within the Africa Centers for Disease and Control and Prevention. And now it is our own vaccine acquisition task team that is leading our effort in the next frontier of the pandemic to acquire vaccines for the people of our continent. As we will report later, the task team has done outstanding work in both securing substantial quantities of COVID-19 vaccines and mobilizing financing so that all African countries can access vaccines for their people. We have stood firm on the principle that the global fight to contain the pandemic must not and cannot leave any of the countries on our continent behind. We have affirmed on all international platforms and in every multilateral engagement that Africa stands and works as one. This is a principle on which we have been consistent, not just with regards to equitable access to medical supplies and vaccines, but also with regards to financial support and debt relief arrangements for vulnerable countries. Despite the enormous impediments presented by the pandemic, our continent is today firmly on the road to economic integration. On the 1st of January 2021, the African Continental Free Trade Area came into operation, realizing the vision of the founders of our continental body and economic integration and development. And through the Johannesburg Declaration, the AFCFTA came into being. As we work to rebuild our national economy in the wake of the pandemic, this continental free trade area will be instrumental in driving trade, investment, job creation, business development on the continent through increased manufacturing and the industrialization of our continent. It will enable our recovery to be all the faster and stronger. Ours is an African Union that is practically working towards greater peace and security. Conflict and war on the continent remains a grave threat to our developmental aspirations.
Kwa hivyo
But the silence of the government of Africa is a long and arduous process. We have agreed to extend the implementation of the AU Master Roadmap of practical steps for silencing the guns in Africa for a period of 10 years, from 2020 to 2030. We have further agreed that there must be periodic reviews every 2 years of our implementation of this objective. Last year, we began a new decade for women's economic and financial inclusion, which states our commitment to scale up actions for gender inclusion towards sustainable development. We said that we would leverage Africa's industrialization under the African Continental Free Trade Area to advance women's financial and economic inclusion. During the extraordinary summit of the AFCFTA held in December 2020, we highlighted the need for trade facilitation to support Africa's businesswomen as well as entrepreneurs. Today, we present to member states proposed summit decision on the program of action on African women in trade. This will be undertaken by the Women in Trade Monitoring Platform, which will enable state partners to annually report on progress, tailor-made financial products for women with reliable means to save, to access, to transfer, and to borrow money. As the AU, we should also develop a decade action plan to help member states determine and implement key flagship activities towards women's economic empowerment. We all remain concerned at the high levels of violence against women and children on our continent. Therefore, we request the Assembly to adopt a decision to develop a convention of ending violence against women and children that will amplify our commitment to promote, to protect, and to fulfill women's as well as girls' rights. To also take a decision to adopt a decision to convene a women-led peace forum attended by heads of state and government and to implement the decisions of the Peace and Security Council to institutionalize the office of the Special Envoy on Women, Peace and Security. To also adopt a decision to establish a heads of state-level circle of champions that can champion and drive the necessary change. We also call on member states to ratify the International Labour Organization Convention 190 on eliminating violence and harassment in the world of work. We'd like to commend Namibia for leading in this regard. It is our firm belief that the economic empowerment and emancipation of women will go a long way in ending the scourge of violence against women and girls on our continent. The African Union must be unequivocal that all human beings, regardless of sex and gender, are both equal. At the founding conference of the OAU, one of Africa's most celebrated sons, Kwame Nkrumah said, open quotes, "There's no time to waste. We must unite now or perish. No sporadic act nor pious resolution can resolve our present problems. Nothing will be of avail except the united act of a united Africa," close quotes. Indeed, Your Excellencies, there is no time to waste. If we are to overcome this pandemic and address all the challenges that our continent faces, we must forge meaningful partnerships and pursue greater cooperation. We must continue to implement the institutional reforms necessary for the African Union to become a professional and self-sustaining organization. As we hand over to South Africa the baton to the Democratic Republic of Congo, we are determined to continue working with the President Tshisekedi to ensure that Africa becomes an integrated continent that is politically united, based on the ideals of Pan-Africanism and the vision of African Renaissance. I would like to extend my gratitude to the chairman of the AU Commission, His Excellency Musa Faki Ahmad, in the way that he and I have worked during the course of this year. There's been nothing but outstanding and exemplary and cooperative. I'd also like to thank the members of the Bureau and also the members, the regional economic community, the AU Commission, Africa CBC, led by Dr. John Kegasong, who has been a shining star and a great leader in our fight against COVID-19. I'd also like to thank the various envoys that we appointed to work with us, both to meet and address the COVID-19 challenge, as well as the envoys we are appointed to help us to silence the guns on our continent. I'd also like to thank the international community, without whose support the chairship of the AU for 2020 would have been far more daunting as a mission. I also want to thank heads of the various AU institutions, as well as staff of the AU Commission, for all the support that they gave us during this period. And Your Excellencies, it has been a joy to serve alongside all of you during this period. And as I hand over to His Excellency, President Felix Tshisekedi, I hand over with joy, knowing that the work that I took over from President Sisi will indeed be continued under the leadership of President Tshisekedi. I thank you. Thank you very much.
Nous vous remercions, Monsieur le Président, tout en vous souhaitant et tout en reconnaissant le travail abattu en ces temps difficiles. Je voudrais maintenant solennellement inviter Son Excellence, Monsieur Tshisekedi, Président de la République démocratique du Congo et président de l'Union africaine, pour son discours d'acceptation.
Moment historique. Hein.
Hand over the flag of our union to President Tshisekedi and wish him the very best as he takes on this task of leading our union. Congratulations, President Tshisekedi, and I now hand over the flag as well as the gavel to you as our new chairperson of the AU. Thank you very much. Here is the flag. Thank you.
Excellences, Mesdames et Messieurs les chefs d'État et de gouvernement, Monsieur le Secrétaire général des Nations Unies, Monsieur le Président de la Commission de l'Union africaine, Excellences, Mesdames et Messieurs les ministres, distingués invités, Mesdames et Messieurs, c'est un immense honneur que tous les États africains ont fait à mon pays, la République démocratique du Congo, par ma modeste personne, en lui accordant la présidence de notre organisation continentale. La présente mandature, dois-je le rappeler, a pour thème principal art, culture et patrimoine, levier pour l'édification de l'Afrique de l'Union. Nous voulons en effet une Afrique avec une participation active, massive des femmes et des jeunes, moteurs d'un développement durable sa propre histoire. Et elle sera, au nord et au sud du Sahara, une histoire de gloire et de dignité. Fin de citation. C'est dans cette optique que pour honorer la mémoire de tous les panafricanistes, j'entends ancrer la thématique de ma présidence de l'Union africaine dans la vision ci-après, une Union africaine au service des peuples. Cette vision spécifique qui s'inscrit dans le premier plan décennal de mise en œuvre 2014-2023 de l'agenda 2063 va se décliner autour de 9 piliers stratégiques, mieux détaillés dans mon plan d'action. Les arts, la culture et le patrimoine constituent le socle de la renaissance africaine. Ils nous offrent l'opportunité d'opérer notre retour aux sources. En tant que somme des inventions de l'homme, de ses innovations et de ses combats pour assurer sa survie et son épanouissement, la culture est effectivement, comme le disait le bon Sénat Senghor, au commencement et à la fin de toute chose, car elle embrasse tous les domaines de la vie. Excellences, Mesdames et Messieurs, au moment où nous accédons à la présidence de l'Union africaine, notre continent est en proie à un défi majeur, celui de faire taire les armes. Dans la région sahélo-sahélienne, les filles et fils de l'Afrique tombent chaque jour sous la barbarie terroriste. En République centrafricaine, la paix et la stabilité des institutions élues sont mises à rude épreuve par des rébellions et des groupes armés. Dans la partie est de mon pays, la République démocratique du Congo, persiste, comme je l'ai relevé à plusieurs reprises, l'insécurité causée par des groupes armés locaux et des mouvements terroristes étrangers, notamment les ADF. Il en est de même de l'Afrique australe, réputée pour sa stabilité et son pacifisme, où le terrorisme est en train de sévir dans la partie nord du Mozambique. Excellences, Mesdames et Messieurs, une Afrique au service des peuples se construit aussi à travers l'intégration du continent. C'est ici le lieu de saluer les progrès accomplis dans le processus de ratification de l'accord de libre-échange continental africain, la CECAF. Le démarrage des échanges commerciaux au début de cette année et l'action du président Mahamadou Issoufou pour le rôle qu'il a joué dans le lancement de la CECAF. Certes, le démarrage des échanges en ce mois de janvier 2021 dans le cadre de la zone de libre-échange continentale africaine représente un acte d'indépendance économique. Mais il existe des défis certains au regard des disparités dans le développement industriel de nos différents pays. Excellences, Mesdames et Messieurs, nul n'a pu tenir la pandémie de Covid-19 qui a pris au dépourvu toute l'humanité au point de nous faire perdre des vies humaines, de restreindre les mouvements des personnes et de déstabiliser nos économies. Bien que relativement moins touchée que d'autres parties du monde, l'Afrique n'a pas non plus été épargnée par ce virus mortel. Raison pour laquelle nous saluons l'ingéniosité et la résilience dont ont fait montre les pays africains dans la lutte contre cette pandémie. Fort de l'expérience du combat contre l'adversité et de nos grandes capacités d'adaptation, ne baissons pas les bras et ne perdons pas de vue d'autres pathologies qui continuent de sévir au point d'être parfois de loin plus mortelles, comme la malaria ou le VIH-Sida. Organisons-nous ensemble avec nos partenaires internationaux pour une grande offensive contre ces différents fléaux. Il est important que notre organisation puisse renforcer le Centre africain pour le contrôle et la prévention des maladies, c'est institutions techniques spécialisées de l'Union africaine. Excellences, Mesdames et Messieurs, dans une stratégie avec les communautés économiques régionales, nous allons conjuguer nos efforts pour renforcer la paix et la sécurité, poursuivre l'opérationnalisation de la zone de libre-échange continentale africaine, promouvoir une renaissance de la culture, des arts et du patrimoine africain, lutter contre les changements climatiques, accélérer les projets intégrateurs, entre autres la construction du grand barrage Inga, consolider les initiatives de l'Union africaine dans la lutte contre la COVID-19 et dans la prévention contre d'autres maladies. Tirant justement les leçons de la pandémie, en plus de renforcer nos systèmes de santé, le moment est venu d'investir davantage dans l'éducation et la recherche scientifique. Dès lors, il est d'un intérêt hautement stratégique que chaque État membre réserve une bonne part de son revenu au développement de son capital humain, qui est la principale richesse, la seule qui soit capable de se mobiliser avec efficacité pour résoudre ces problèmes spécifiques et faire face aux défis mondiaux. Fort de ma vision d'une Union africaine au service des peuples africains, je me propose précisément de faire sortir notre organisation, avec votre concours à tous, des salles des conférences, des disques durs de nos ordinateurs et des dossiers bien ficelés de nos secrétariats. J'entends l'amener dans les cours d'école, au milieu des camps des réfugiés, au cœur des marchés de nos villes et des champs de nos villages. Excellences, Mesdames et Messieurs, promouvoir une communauté panafricaine consciente de son histoire, de son potentiel artistique et de la richesse de son patrimoine culturel n'est pas et ne doit pas être une option, mais un devoir. Nous devons le réaliser ensemble au cours de la présente année en nous appuyant sur les 9 piliers qui constituent ma vision stratégique. C'est à ce prix, j'en suis persuadé, que l'Afrique poursuivra sa marche vers l'horizon de l'agenda 2063 qui lui assurera, entre autres, la prospérité fondée sur la croissance inclusive et le développement durable, la paix et la sécurité et la pleine égalité entre les hommes et les femmes dans tous les domaines de la vie. Pour terminer, mes chers frères et sœurs, continuons à tisser inlassablement, année après année, la nappe de l'intégration africaine. Comme l'avait si bien dit, si bien souligné Joseph Kizerbo, on ne développera pas l'Afrique, mais c'est l'Afrique qui se développe. Je vous remercie.
Nous vous remercions, Monsieur le Président.